Yep. Okay. Good. Thanks everyone for joining. I think it's super exciting to be teaching this course on NPTEL this semester, and I think I've taught this course multiple times on NPTEL, multiple times on IIIT, multiple times on even outside IIIT actually. So let's see how the course goes. But I really think that it's good to have many of you actually join this course, because I think many of you must be, almost all of you. Is there anybody in the class who does not use Instagram, either Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter? Is there anybody in the class who is not on any social media? Very hard to find, right? Because I think today the world is, all of us end up actually using these platforms for interactions with people, for even doing business, for all kinds of services that we do today, interactions that we do. I think social media has become an important part of our life, and so getting to know more of these kind of these networks, these topics is also important. But we'll not do a general online social media class. The focus for this class is going to be privacy and security in online social media. So the goal is we'll take online social media and start looking at only the privacy and security topics. Okay. So I'm PK. I'm a faculty at IIIT Delhi. And this, as I said, this course I've taught a couple of times before, and I'm really excited about actually adding some new content this semester, like these kind of lectures we'll do. We're also editing we're also modifying the labs and other content that we are uploading in the class. So feel free to actually use all of these content that we're generating. And we're also hoping that we'll do some online interactions with you as and when possible. Right? This was the first edition that I did. Okay, so I think the big component of why so many of us are actually excited about this topic is this whole data that it is getting generated. Just look at it. I will also try and see if I can actually upload the annotated PDF also. So I'll make some annotations. So are there anybody in class who's on Tinder? You can do a +1 if you're on Tinder, right? So Tinder is again a network where many people are actually using it these days, right? Tinder, look at the number of swipes that Tinder has. And probably some of you may be on Instagram. There's a lot more people on Netflix, right? So all of these platforms have just increased the activity, increased our attention to these networks very heavily. And just to give you a context, the numbers difference between 2019 and 2020 is this. You can clearly see almost all platforms are actually having increase in activity, increase in interactions from users. Right? I'm sure if you're not on some of the platforms, please go check out what these platforms are. For example, Twitch is a platform which is actually online streaming games. People use it for playing games, right? Or streaming videos, all of that. So this is one of the big reasons why this topic of online social media, topic of studying online social media has become more and more mainstream in that sense. Is there anybody in the class again in that you don't have an account in any of these platforms, so you don't know something? Please ask. I'll actually try and tell you what it is. But otherwise, these platforms are very popular on for a particular type of content. Like for example, YouTube is for video, Flickr is for images, LinkedIn is for professional, Facebook everything, short content, Google Plus is not very active, but anything, TikTok. This is called Gab, in case, because these are new networks that people may or may not have seen. This is Parler. We'll come back to Parler in some time. That's basically the network that, if you remember the 6th, 7th, 8th January Capitol riot protests that happened, Parler was actually used. Right? It's one of the networks that became popular during that time. So Pinterest again is images, Snapchat. Saraha is an anonymous social network. So if you remember, for some of you may have had accounts then, which is Facebook Confessions and Compliments. If you remember those networks, the Saraha became popular to replacing this Facebook confessions and compliments. Right? And V is for wine, which was short video messages on Twitter. Foursquare is for location. So this can be also put as location-based social network, LBSN it's called. So Whisper is also part of the Saraha anonymous social networks. I would put them as ASN. I would put Snapchat as ESN, which is more like ephemeral social network, where the content is getting destroyed, content is getting disappeared after some time. I think many of the networks have also started doing stories in different ways by which your information is actually getting destroyed, information is getting disappeared, right? All of that is happening, but ephemeral social network would be the type of network that where you create some content, after a period of time it vanishes. Right? And then Tumblr is kind of a blog-based social network. Tinder is sort of say relationship and matchmaking network. Okay. So this slide actually gives you a sense, right? Just think about it. Just all kinds of information that we are actually using in day-to-day. Insta is pictures again, which is very similar to Flickr. Pictures, videos, short text saying, oh, I'm actually going to meet somebody for lunch. Parlor, which is I want to express my sort of say view against something very vehemently. I have an ideology that I want to actually pursue. All of that is anonymous posts, right? All kinds of information is getting generated on these platforms, right? Very interesting, right? Very interesting to see that how everyday activity that we can do is like, for example, Foursquare. Foursquare just based on location. If you understand geotag, right? If you understand geotag, the information that is tagged with the location is what is being predominantly used for Foursquare, which is called atomic information that one can use for creating a network. Right? YouTube, that is video. Foursquare, that is location. Insta, that is actually images. Right? Okay, quickly let's discuss what is privacy. Privacy is the state of being not watched or tracked, right? So this is expectations of privacy is to keep myself, right? Keep myself in, I mean, I want to do things, but I don't want to be tracked, right? I want to be in a group, but I don't want to be identified that it's PKOs in the group, right? So these are all different definitions of privacy. Very nice to see keeping my information as secret as possible, share my information with people I choose to share. Very interesting definitions. So just think about it. Many of you are actually focusing on the word called information. So at the end of the day, that's what is becoming the way by which we express privacy. Also, expectations of privacy is turning out to be expectations of my information, right? Things that I post on Facebook, things that I actually share on my Twitter. Right? Ability to be selective about sharing my personal information, right? So you do something on Facebook, and then you want to say that no, I don't want it to go public. I just want to make sure that some of my friends only see it, right? So that's another definition of, or that's another way to actually express privacy, right? Nobody is watching me, which is same as nobody should be tracking, right? So so the focus of then what we are saying is. Information, right? Information privacy, and then there was also this physical privacy, right? I don't want to be watched, both in sense of physical and in terms of online, and watching me types wala privacy. Right? Very nice, very nice. And then, of course, Bhavesh is saying that no sharing of those information which I don't want to be, right? So I put some information online, I don't want it to be shared with others, right? So those are the expectations of privacy you can think. We'll see about privacy later in detail, but for now, for the motivation for the class, I think this lecture is generally about, look, it's super exciting to be studying this topic. I'm just going to give that as part of this lecture, right? So what is security now? Yeah, security is basically the problem, the topic of actually my information and, right? So fundamental duty of state, protection of information, right? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability, somebody said before. right? So those are the things that you think about security, right? For example, another way of explaining security is I want to send some information to, let's take somebody in the class. I send that information, you receive that information properly, then security is kind of protected, right? Information is kind of protected. You have all your passwords, so to say, encrypted. You have your data that is encrypted in your drive. All that is security being protected. But privacy is slightly different, right? Privacy is that, look, you can protect your information, but that information can be actually given away for making some decisions beyond what protection is given to the data, right? So that's what security is. Again, just keep in mind the expectations of security is, information is being transferred, something is given, and it reaches the destination properly without any kind of sort of say tampering in between that happens. Right? So that's kind of security now. So what we will look at in this class, I think I already said about social media. The goal for this class, I think that's where I'm motivating all of this. The goal for this class is to actually say that, look, I think we're going to focus only on this. We'll focus on this, right? And we will use the topics from these two to actually study this. Right? You post something on Twitter, meaning can you actually tag, can you actually find somebody's location by just the pictures that they are posting? They're not saying that where they are, but you want to actually find out whether where they are, right? Or information that, meaning one of the sort of say super cool topic that has become in the last few years is this fake news, right? The topic of fake news is very cool in terms of social media because that's where many of this information is getting spread. Can you identify fake news? Can you identify a user who's actually a fake account? Right? Can you actually find out that this is not a human being, but it's actually a program which is actually doing it? Right? So all of that is what we will actually look at in terms of the course, in terms of the topics that we'll actually have in this course. Okay. Some TAs for now, Neha, Avinash, and Prashant, all of them are PhD students. Some of them have already started helping with the discussion. And we'll also have Hitkul, who will help with some lab content that you'll actually see very soon. Okay. But my reason for putting this is please be active on the platform. Please be active on the discussion forum and participate in the discussion forum. It looks like 67 people have joined, 68 people have joined. Very nice to see. I was worried that in the mailing list there was only 55 people. I was worried that how many people would join, but it looks like more people actually are able to join because of the announcement. So please follow the participate in the discussion forum, and I'm sure you will actually learn more by actually being active, right? So TA stands for teaching assistants, just in case somebody is asking, teaching assistants who will help with the course, right? You post some questions quickly there. You want explanation for something in the lab. I'm also monitoring the mailing list, but TAs will definitely reply to your questions, queries very quickly. And they will also have some lab sessions. They will also have some interactions with you in case if you have trouble in doing something. For example, we are going to do some labs around data collection from social media and doing some analysis with it. We'll post a video. If you have trouble, show up on this time slot and we can actually help you fix the bug, help you go through the process by interacting with the teaching assistant. Okay? Is that okay? Okay, cool. So that's where the course is. So let me give you some interesting patterns that you will see in social media. Interesting phenomena in social media. I'm not going to delve into a lot of detail, but I will actually give you one or two things that to keep in mind as we go through the process. I think somebody is trying to actually do the annotation on the slides. Please don't do it. Okay, so I think it'll be nice if you don't bother about trying all this unless and until you really want to actually do it and show that you are capable of doing it, right? So let's, yeah. So 6 degrees of separation, right? 6 degrees of separation is, any idea what 6 degrees of separation would be? Any thoughts? So here is what 6 degrees of separation means, right? So if you take two people randomly anywhere in the world and see that if what is the distance between two people, which is you or my friend. For example, let's take Avinash, who's in the call. I mean, Avinash is my student, and then Avinash knows somebody, somebody knows somebody, and then the hops of finding the relationship between two people in general, in average, is about 6. Basics of social networks. So if you take a basics network science class, so right, network science class, this is one of the things that they will teach you to show that, look, any network, this has nothing to do with Facebook. This has nothing to do with Twitter. This has nothing to do with Instagram. This is in general. If you take your mom and if you take somebody else somewhere, the relationship between them is about 6. Right? So that's what we are talking about. In the hops, so to say. Right? Interesting phenomena, right? This people have studied this before multiple times to show that the average number of hops is about 6. If you just translate this into actual social media, the number actually becomes much lesser, understandably, right? Because Facebook is much closer. Facebook is, so to say, getting people closer and closer. So the 6 is becoming lesser and lesser. So now what's happening is instead of 6, which is what is generally agreed on, the interaction, the edges between the people on Facebook is actually much lesser. At some point in time, people at Facebook had actually said that it's around 3.5. Okay, so that's what the distance between two users on Facebook is. Okay, another interesting thing that you will find is this idea about this idea about strengths of weak ties also. Okay, so before I jump in, this slide is basically showing you that what is a strong tie. Let's understand what is a strong tie. Strong tie could be, let's take your sibling. Strong tie could be a friend that you have, meaning very close friends. This is basically saying, right? Strong tie could be somebody who you interact very regularly, which is what is shown here. Right? This is strong tie. Weak tie is somebody who you meet in the sort of say metro. You meet somebody in the aeroplane, right? You just bump into somebody in your college. You don't know the person, just somebody, right? Dance program happens, you dance with somebody, and then that's it. You don't have really a friendship relationship with somebody. Right? This is called weak ties. Strong ties, weak ties. And interestingly, people have studied before. Again, this has been done multiple times to show that the weak ties, the interactions that you have, the edge that you have with people who are not strongly connected with you are actually people who bring you a lot more opportunities. Actually, people who are exposing you to topics that you actually don't know. Is that okay? Is that making sense? So can you please do a +1 if you've understood both the 6 degrees of separation and the strength of weak ties? Please do a +1. Yeah. Okay, good. Understood. Very nice. Somebody said that you did not understand quickly, right? Strength of weak ties is weak tie is nothing but a person that you know, acquaintance, if you were to say about it, right? मैंने किसी को metro में जाते जाते साथ में मिला था. I just met somebody in the metro when I was traveling. I said hello to him. Airplane is much better. So I travel with this person from here, from Delhi to Kolkata. Next to me in the flight, I said hello, how are you? And what do you do? Blah blah blah. All that. I get off the flight and then I move on. That's it. This is, to some extent, you can treat this as a weak tie. But this is not like your sibling, right? This is not like your classmate who's sitting next to you for the last 4 years for the undergrad. Right? So therefore, weak ties, strong ties, and the opportunities that come through weak ties, the new content that you get to see, new topics that you get to see with the weak ties is much, much higher than the strong ties. Right? Very nice. Okay, let's move on. So social media, right? When we talk about the word social media, sometimes there's always a sort of say misconception about only social networks, right? So if you talk about social media, there's a reference that it's always about Facebooks, Twitters, and Tinders and Instagrams. Unfortunately, not necessarily, because social media can be just playing games together, right? I'm sure all of you are playing a lot of online games now, given the way situations are, right? Online games is also social network, right? You think of Skype, where you just speak with people, is also social media in that sense. Because if you see, even in Skype, at least more recently, Skype has also started showing you relationships, right? If somebody sends you an invitation on Skype, it'll show you that the interaction, the sort of say hop between you is, so the common friend is ABC, right? So that's coming because the information is actually in a social, in a network, right? Okay, good. So I want to make sure that you understand that the class, this word social media, is not only the social networks, which is Wikipedia is also listed if you look at it. It's also a social media, because where there is connections being made, I create some content, moderator is checking the content, all of that is happening. Right? Interactions are happening on that platform. Okay, for V's of social media, 4 or 5 V's of social media, the way you look at it is, one is velocity, variety, volume, veracity, and value. Just to argue that, look, I think the amount of data that is getting generated, so for example, we just saw here, right? Amount of the kind of networks are very broad, because it's actually showing you different types of content. We saw that the volume is increasing a lot, right? Volume is increasing a lot, and volume is increasing, and this slide is also saying the velocity is increasing, because amount of data getting generated in a short span of time is much higher. And of course, over a period of time, the problems with social media is that veracity has also increased, which is, veracity means verification of the content has become harder. Any of you can create an account on anybody's name on Twitter, right? It is not necessary that only PK has to create an account called PK and run it. Anybody can create that content. Okay? That's the veracity. Value is, people, meaning Uber, can make information and analyze this information that's available on Twitter to make judgments, to make predictions, to tell you recommendations from this data. Facebook can decide what advertisements to present to you. It's creating a value out of the data that they have, so that you can actually make, Facebook can make actually right predictions. Veracity, Veracity. Okay. Okay. So growth of social media, I think your generation of people, I don't think so there's any reason to convince you that, look, social media is actually increasing, social media has become popular. This slide is convincing that point, saying that, look, it will, the importance of social media became more evident when people started, when all of us were more interested in knowing what is happening to the people that I'm connected to, more than the information that I'm interested in knowing, which is what people use Google for. Yahoo used to be used for content to news, is what Yahoo used to be used for. Right? So people started, meaning you and I are more, I'm sure all of us are connected to Instagram, right? You're kind of checking, you have your notifications, you're checking your friends' stories, all of that. That was not the behavior 15 years before, right? Where people were more interested in, let's learn or understand new things, right? Which is what has changed. Couple of quick introductions to some events that has made the way that social media is thought about. Social media is actually understood now, right? The way that we would, so this particular event, which happened when the aeroplane actually landed in Hudson River, is one of those primary events where social media was used to solve a problem. In this case, go fetch the people from the river. So this was one of the incidents that happened in a few years before. One of the incidents that happened some years before. But now, right now, more recently, social media is being used for solving problems all around the place, right? Many events are getting attacked through social media, right? You want so to say, abhi COVID ke liye, if you see, people are using social media to ask for plasma. Right? So therefore, earlier social media was not used for these kind of things. Today, social media is very effectively used for solving crisis also. This was one of the initial incidences where social media started being used for solving a problem. What is a hashtag? Right? What is a hashtag? It's basically used for putting content together so that when you search for a topic, it can actually bring it and show it to you together. Right? So search engine optimization, if you were to call it, right? Which is what it will allow, so that when you are looking for some particular keywords, if you're looking for some topics, it is easy to put the content together and bring it back and show it to you. Right? The search becomes much more easier. Collation of that information becomes much more easier. So which is what you will actually also learn in the class, how to collect data from social media so you can actually analyze the topic of your interest. For example, let's take, if you want to understand, if you're any of you from Bangalore, let's take if you want to collect data from hashtag Bangalore traffic, analyze the data to make some inferences, which will actually be helpful for something. So search engine optimization is the reason why you have these hashtags. Yeah, I just put down some examples of hashtags that are popular, examples hashtags that are used very commonly at some point in time. Okay. So generally, what happens is social media, right? If you do any kinds of analysis in social media, generally you will end up asking these sets of questions. Right? Any incident that happens, for example, capital riots are happening, for example, farmers' protest is happening, cricket match is happening. Oh, let's analyze who all are speaking about cricket right now. Let's analyze when did they speak. Let's analyze from which part of the world are they speaking from. Let's analyze what are they speaking about. Right? So those are the 4 things that are easier to analyze from social media. Unfortunately, these 2 things is harder, right? Which is why and how. You don't know why people are tweeting about cricket match, because he or she may be interested in. How are they tweeting? You can, to some extent, look at the devices that they're using. Right? For example, they're using an Android phone, Samsung phone, iPhone, all that. But that's the how that we can actually go till far. As technology, as an analysis of data, we can't get much further than that. Okay, that's social media data. So one another reason why this course can be very effectively used is to actually find out whether you can predict something before it happens. I think that's the crux of a lot of business value also. Can we use social media to predict that tomorrow there's going to be a, sort of say, protest against something in Delhi? Can you predict that the stock market value of a company is going to crash from the social media data? Right? So these are all great test cases. Can you actually predict a flu attack? Sort of say, not necessarily like a COVID. COVID also, people actually started looking at social media to use whether we can actually predict all of that. But can you actually predict some kind of health pandemic through social media? using social media data. These are great test cases for using social media data because they are open source, because they're phenomenally high in terms of volume and data that is getting generated. Okay, is that okay? Any questions still here? Any quick questions? I'll take a. No. Can you do a +1 if everything is clear and you're kind of satisfied until now? Just for my satisfaction, if nothing else. Okay, pretty good. Pretty good, thanks. So yeah, let's continue. So this slide is basically arguing the point that, look, we can actually do prediction to some extent. That if, so this one is UK, when UK riots happen. UK riots is one of those incidents when social media was used to actually do the riot, right? So that's the incident, whereas this is UK. And if you see, there are 4 circles here, yellow circles, which are circles where the real riot happened, whereas these 7, 8, 9, 9 and 10, if you see, these are tweets. Every circle is a tweet here that was geotagged, which was caught with hashtag UK riots. Right? Interesting, right? Riots are happening over a period of, it's like, I think later I have a couple of slides for you to watch some movies. One of the movies that you should definitely watch if you have not watched is Minority Report. Right? Minority Report is a movie of Tom Cruise, which actually does something like this. Can you actually predict the crime before it happens? Right? Somebody is going to shoot somebody. Can this information be predicted beforehand? Right? So here, 6th. So this is all the tweets on 6th. This is all the tweets on 6th plus 7th. Similarly, you go in this direction. Right? So in this direction, if you go, it's clearly, if you see, the darker circles or the places where the actual incidents happen, you can see a lot of correlation between dark circles of each of this. If only if we could have actually had this data before or while the UK riots were happening and the analysis to be done, it would have been super nice. But this analysis was done after the incident. Right? So I would highly recommend you to think about wherever it's useful to you, right? I'm not saying that all of you should start looking at, UK riots type incidents. I'm pretty sure you can use social media for predicting. For example, some of people that I know are actually trying to study the effect of social media on depression, right? How much people are getting depressed online. Can you study it from social media? Right? I'm putting social media broadly, but you can think of Twitter, Reddit, all of this thing, right? So can you actually find out so another problem, right? Can you actually find out if a kid who's watching YouTube, is there a possibility of this kid getting a video which is not appropriate to his age, which is also a social media question, right? Which is also a YouTube question. Can you use network? Can you use the data that, can you use the videos that the kid has seen before? All these kinds of things can be used to make some prediction. Right? So I would highly recommend you to keep a watch of it. Let's talk in the discussion forum about these topics. I think it'll be super fun to have some conversations. I am personally happy to interact with any student who's interested in some ideas to try out also. Right? It's because it's not part of the NPTEL requirement, right? NPTEL requirement is you go through the, so to say, course material, take the homeworks, take the exam, and it's done. But if any of you are interested in exploring slightly beyond that, I'm happy to interact with you. I'm happy to do some sessions where we can actually go through the ideas, give you some ideas about what all you can try, which may be very helpful to build some solutions, to put some solutions on public, get people to use it. All of that will be pretty nice. Quickly, some case studies. So one of the case studies, of course, Delhi gang rape that happened in 2012, where social media was used to get people to come to India Gate, people to come to Jantar Mantar. One of those initial incidences which happened in India, where social media was actually used for bringing people together. This was one of those initial incidents. This incident is called Arab Springs, where social media was heavily used to protest against the government, to bring down the government and then bring a change in the society. All of that was going on in that part of the world for using social media, right? Very nice. On the other side, social media can also be troublesome because of your behavior, right? The kind of likes that you do, the kind of shares that you do, all of that can actually also come back and bite you at some point in time. One of the incidents is this one. Another incident which is also made a lot of news about, where the social media was used to actually recruit people into different organizations, right? Malicious organizations, so to say, different organizations where people could do intentionally, they could actually get into some malicious activities. Right? So this is another case study that is possible. That happened a few years before. UK riots I just mentioned about in the vision slide, right? So these are all, I mean, I think these are not no way comprehensive. I see some of you already saying Me Too, Occupy was, I think earlier, yeah, Black Lives Matters, BLM was, BLM, I think in many days, sometimes BLM actually starts trending. Even during the January 7th, 8th incident and Capitol riots incident, the BLM also started trending. Right? So these are all very nice to see students already knowing all this, you already knowing all this, which means you will be able to actually appreciate the content in the course much better because you understand some of these things well yourself. Okay? How many of you watched this documentary? Yeah. So yeah. So if you have not watched, please go watch it. It's on Netflix. Meaning, I think it's these kind of documentaries. There are two documentaries that I'm going to show. One is The Social Dilemma. The other one is The Great Hack. I think if you can watch these two, these are 45-50 minutes. We can have an interesting discussion on the discussion forum about the things that you can take away from this documentary. I see some of you saying heard about it, but please go watch. This will help you get a better sense, appreciate the course like this, right? Yeah, I just wrote down some notes from the documentary. I'll not spoil the interest that you have in going and watching it. Please go watch it. It will give you a sense of what the topic is, how the social media is actually playing a role in manipulating our human behavior. I think the last line is one of those lines that came out of is there in the documentary also. Social media destabilize the fabric of society, manipulate user behavior. I think somewhere I've written about, yeah, so change in your behavior and perception. And then there's also another thing as users as the product, right? So we always think that who's the product? What is being sold in social media? How are these companies making money? The documentary argues that, look, there's nothing to be sold. You are what is being sold. Your data is what is being sold. Your behavior is what is being sold, is what is being made. Money is being made from that data. Right? So I highly recommend. So if you really watch it, please post something on the discussion forum. I'm happy to actually discuss more as inputs come in from students. Here is another one, The Great Hack. Again, this is more about right? This is more about the Cambridge Analytica. Some of you may have heard about Cambridge Analytica or read about it in detail. This again is a documentary which shows you how much of information about us is getting collected and how it was actually used for getting into this decision making about elections voting, right? If social, I mean, in this case, I've shown social media can be used to actually change the person you vote for. Imagine what all can be done. I highly recommend seeing it. Again, the crux of it is lots of data getting generated about you. You are generating the data, actually. You are generating the data. The data can be just put together to profile you so that they can actually predict, for example, what color of shoes do I like? For example, what movies do I like, right? All those predictions can happen. And in this case, they actually predicted your political affiliation and use that to say that, okay, if you're politically affiliated, if you can be manipulated uh, uh, to change your opinion about political affiliation, then they were actually showing you advertisements regarding a political party. Right? So that's the crux of this documentary. I would highly recommend you watch it. The next two videos that I'm going to recommend you watch is this. You can just watch only the shorter version. This is the shorter version, I think 10-minute video. It's like the summary of, so this is basically the interactions that Mark Zuckerberg was asked to come and interact with the Congress, where questions were asked to him about the platform, right? You will find it many questions that are being asked is so hard to answer, right? Meaning, well, I mean, can you predict my user behavior? Is it possible to be predicted, right? What are you doing with that information? Is something being misused? Blah, blah, blah. Lots of questions were asked, but I think I will again recommend you to watch it. It's an interesting video again. If you have patience, watch the whole thing. We'll give you super insightful thoughts and ideas to work on for problems to study. One problem of that is the shadow profile. It's an extremely important problem. So I thought I will actually call out that problem and actually show you more information about shadow profile. Shadow profiles are profiles where, for example, if you're not on Instagram already, if you're not on Instagram already, Insta can actually have an account or have information about, let's take ABC. Let's take ABC is not on Insta. Insta can actually create a profile of information about ABC and keep it. Whenever ABC joins the network, they would actually know more about ABC. That's what a shadow profile is. Essentially creating a profile of somebody who's not in the network and having it in the network. Okay, so that's shadow profile, and it's a super interesting problem to study, right? Super interesting problem because it is it makes people who are not in network also about them in the network, right? So this is about Parler, incident that happened on January 6, 7, 8, where people actually use Parler as a network to get together in DC and have a riot. Okay. So this one is showing you that the spike of it. So if you just see what is being shown here, x-axis is the time, y-axis is the number of posts. It's basically showing you that, look, in a very short span of time, number of people who are talking about it is actually spiking. Right? These kind of spikes is what I said before will be useful to study. For example, let's assume that if this was, let's take hashtag Delhi riots, just to give you, right? Where we are kind of looking at what's the kind of posts that are being done on social media. And then from Delhi, let's take, and suddenly we said the hashtag Delhi riots is peaking. You can kind of get to the post and see what they are discussing and all of that much more better. Okay. So we actually recently did a report on this. If any of you are interested, again, the link is here, but if you just search for the title, you should be able to get it pretty easily. So this again is an insight to give, so to say, looking at Parler as a network and Twitter as a network and doing some high-level comparison of these two networks when this incident was happening. I think it makes sense for doing these kinds of analysis because it gives you an insight into how these platforms are used or misused. What kind of inferences can you draw? How can you actually use it to build some solutions, technologies beyond that? I think I will keep coming back to this building solutions. So please, I think if there are students who are interested in it, I will recommend you taking it forward. Okay, So what should what you should aim as part of this course? I think what I would request you to do is try out the labs, right, and exercises. I know I'm sure you can do fairly well with just doing some little bit here and there reading in these kind of courses, because all the homeworks are going to be MCQ. Probability of you getting some answers right is also higher without even knowing some topics at some point in time. But please join the office hours whenever possible. I plan to do such lectures on and off on some topics. So please join whenever possible. I'll try to keep it as much as in the evening, like this time, so that it's easier for many people to join, or even a little later also, so that more people can join whenever possible. Right? Yeah. So I definitely am going to use the mailing list for a lot more discussion. Lectures will be more of one way. Here is the content, look at it, and then we can have some discussion. So mailing list is going to be a great way by which you are going to learn a lot. I'm going to post, and I'm going to request the TAs also to post some of the content. So next few slides is just to show you an example of one example of what we did a long time back, which is actually in the general elections 2019, is completely only on social media. We just took social media as the platform, and we said that, look, we'll just analyze anything that happens about hashtag general elections 2019. Right? All these are newspaper articles that published our data as the source for making some inferences. Right? So we were using social media to argue that, look, there are lots of, for example, look at the statistics that we were able to actually show. Right? Number of verified accounts over the last few years before the elections was spiking. Why? Because I think people want to make sure that the accounts that are posting content also comes across as a legitimate handle. Right? You really want to make sure that the people who are posting the content are actually real people. Right? Therefore, getting a verified account makes sense. Yeah, so number of people who are actually using the network. So we actually did a lot of, so to say, all this you will learn. So for example, the next lab that you will get is on NLP, network analysis, all of this you learn. So basically take the tweet and find out what topics are they discussing, right? To some extent, you can say that, look, I want to also do sentiment analysis or something like that to find positive, negative, neutral type. Or you can say that, look, I took the network of people who are talking cricket. So I'm sure there are some of you who are cricket fans. So you should actually take Asha Bogle's handle and see that who's the person who's speaking most common, interacting with Asha Bogle very frequently, Gavaskar, Sachin Tendulkar, whatever. Or take Indian cricket team. Actually, it may be a nice project, right? Take all the Indian cricket team players, take their Twitter handles and see what kind of interactions are they having on when a match is going on, when a match is going to happen, or in general. Right? I think these are kind of things that you can do with network. Understanding about that content itself can happen through NLP.